Hey, it's Jack, and this video is called How to Talk About Sexual Health and STDs. Hey, if you're new here, you haven't yet subscribed, my name's Jack Butler, I'm a relationship coach, and I'd love to invite you to subscribe. You can just hit subscribe and then tap the bell notification so you hear of new videos as soon as they come out. I release at least 2 new videos every week on relationships and personal growth, and this is an awesome community to be part of. I'm blown away in the best of ways by the quality of questions and comments that comes in from the community here, and I'd love to have you with us. So let's talk sexy topics, sexual health. I'm going to just get stuck into what I think is often the core of this issue. I'm not going to talk too much today about the specifics of all the questions that you could or couldn't ask. I'm just going to go a step deeper than that and sort of look at what's the context within which questions or requests about sexual health may arise. And I think the context is, do you have the ability to know what you want? And do you have the sort of self-assuredness that it's okay for you to be the arbiter of what does and doesn't happen to your body, right? So most of you watching this, if sexual health is something that you've been thinking about, I imagine in part that's about what is the sexual health status of a potential love partner. And I want to suggest that you do have the right to know about that if you're going to go into fully opening your body to some kind of sexual experience. So this can also be quite clarifying territory, right? My belief is if someone is really your guy, right? Part of being your guy is what? They care about your experience, they care about you, and they can receive your influence. So part of being your guy is if you want to know something about my sexual health or you want us to get tested in certain ways, that I want to be open to hearing that and receiving your influence, right? And if I can't do that, if I dismiss you, if I'm not interested in playing ball with you, you probably have your answer already that I'm not really your guy, and then that's your decision whether being sexual would still be on the table for you. But for a lot of you, it probably wouldn't be, right? Because actually being sexual and deepening in that way for you is part of actually want someone that I can build a relationship with, right? So if you take anything from this video, it's just you have a right to ask and you have a right to have someone receive your influence. And if they can't receive that influence, you also have an answer about who they might be to you, right? Now, the other thing that can be difficult about this is sort of like, well, when's the right timing? Do we talk about this when we're just, we're kind of making out and maybe it's sort of on the table that we could be more sexual? Or do I do this sort of right at the beginning just so someone knows exactly where I stand? Or do we talk about it when it's really clear that we are going to be sexual? I want to look at that from a different perspective. If you're with the right guy, the right timing is going to be less important, right? It's not like, oh, sorry, you asked me a week early or a day early, or that was inappropriate when you brought it in. I think you're going to find if you're with the right guy that either he wants to talk about it as well, or there's just a general kind of care and curiosity that comes with the conversation, right? When a guy doesn't have that, it partly can be because he's sort of doing the equation backstage. Do I want to invest money in getting sexual health tested and being that transparent with you? If to me this is casual, this is kind of hookup, I don't really see this going anywhere serious. I actually don't want to be exclusive with you. So, does it really make sense? I can let you know how I've been tested up until today, but I'm actually going to still have other sexual partners possibly. So, is that information even, worth the paper it's written on? Right? So also the other thing that comes into this is about the exclusivity. And again, is there really a right time for that? So much as if you're with the right person, the timing becomes secondary, right? If you're not with the right person, that, bringing it up in exactly the right way seems to become more important. And then you might take the perception, oh, I brought it up in the wrong way. I said the wrong thing and then the guy disappeared. And I'm much more a fan of the guy disappeared because he wasn't your guy. And you can chill out on yourself. Don't over-personalize. Don't take it too personally. You're almost overestimating your own power in the equation, right? That's sort of the irony when we tend to over-personalize. It's sort of like in certain situations we kind of play God, so to speak, because we're like, oh, well, I did this thing and I said this thing and then that happened. And it's like, yeah, maybe at one level of reality, but another level of reality, if he's out the door, he wasn't your guy. If he got so offended because you brought up a conversation about sexual health, he's not your guy. Right? Sexual health is important. You're important. Your overall health is important. Us having real communication, us being able to receive and give influence, all of that stuff's important. And then sexual health just sits within that context. Whereas when it sits in the other context of, I don't really know if you're my person, I'm probably not your guy, I'm probably sleeping with other people, probably after we've slept together a little bit, this isn't going to be that serious to me. then we're in a completely different context, right? So rather than fearing this conversation, if that has been your experience, you might turn it around and be like, this is actually a clarifying conversation. And even if it's not my favorite conversation to have, even if it doesn't get me turned on, it's not a sort of sexy conversation, this is actually meaningful territory to be in with someone, because it can let you know a little bit about where they may stand. Now, I'm not talking about drawing unrealistic conclusions from this. So it's, we're in the environment at the moment in virus testing more generally. So if the guy's not willing to play ball with you in this conversation, he's not willing to care, he's not willing to receive your influence, he's not willing to receive your request, then I don't think he's your guy. And I think you need to take that information and probably take it to its logical conclusion if what you're looking for is a committed love relationship. Now, if he is willing to receive your influence, or maybe he also takes sexual health really seriously, that doesn't mean, oh yeah, he absolutely is your guy. Do you see what I'm saying? There are a bunch of guys that already have great integrity, practice, and awareness around their sexual health. And just because he's offering that to you doesn't mean, oh yeah, he's definitely in, right? So we don't want this sort of false positive. We don't want, just because he shows up positively in this territory, we're now creating a narrative that we don't actually know is there. So in fancy speak, we can call this necessary but not sufficient. And that means it's necessary that he's willing to engage in this conversation with you in some way and receive your influence. But it's not sufficient that when he does that, that's not the sufficiency test for he's your guy, right? It's like a price of admission, and now he's in the pool of possibility. It doesn't mean that he's checked the ultimate box. So I just want to put that caveat in here. How do you actually broach the conversation? I think you say, hey, at some point, I would like to talk to you about the physical side of our relationship, and if it becomes more sexual, I just want you and I to be on the same page about that. You could also lead with your desire. I would love to consider to be more sexual with you at some point, and before I'm going to feel comfortable to do that, I would love to have a conversation with you about sexual health. So I would flag it to him, and then you can, gives him a little bit of time to think about it. It can be talked about at a later point, but that he's aware that you're thinking in that kind of way. And I think that part of that conversation is also are we doing this exclusively? Because, otherwise the information that you get it's sort of like yesterday's stock price in some ways. Now, you may be comfortable that you both have sexual partners outside of the connection. If that's your thing, fine. But just get clear about that, so it's not something that's left unsaid. Anytime you find yourself like there's a thing I think I should say, but I can't say it, I want to encourage you to try say it, even if it comes out awkwardly. Because then you're in integrity with yourself, you're honoring yourself. So much of the sexual health conversation is actually over here with us, right? It's about fully knowing and honoring, what do we need? What do you need in order that if you're being sexual with someone, it feels good to you, it feels right to you, and it's within a context and a container that makes sense to you, and it's within an information environment that makes sense to you, right? If you're about to get sexual with someone, but 50% of your attention is going on, I wonder if they've got herpes, or I wonder when they last got themselves tested, that's not going to be great for you to actually be able to relax into a sexual connection, right? So this is win-win for everyone, because it just takes a bunch of stuff that you could be up in your head and doubting and worrying about, and it kind of takes it off of the table. Now, the other piece I want to throw in here is sometimes people are aware of their own sexual health status, right? And there can sometimes be some shame or embarrassment around the fact that you might have an STD. And I just want to encourage you to do your best to relax the shame around that. Because again, when you're in the right connection with the right guy, I don't think he's going to care too much. I think he's going to be able to find a way forward with you, and that you guys can find, mutual practices that feel good to you, right? And that, practices could include maybe if there are certain symptoms, then there are certain times that you wouldn't be sexual together, or that there's a complete transparency if you have a certain kind of symptom, right? I'm thinking, for example, with herpes, that can have times where you're shedding, right? That means you're at a higher risk of being able to transmit, that you guys would just have an open and honest dialogue about that. It might be that there's ways that you're going to commit to both getting tested in certain ways on an ongoing basis. But again, it's kind of good information, right? Because if a guy is like, whoa, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to go there at all, he's not your guy, right? If a guy really wants to be with you, there's going to be things along the road to figure out, believe me. So if there's no willingness from his side to engage in that or to find some kind of constructive way forward, he's probably not your guy. So as difficult, again, and as painful as that might be, it's also, it's kind of good information, right? Now, if you're a woman who, seeks love relationships with men, which most of you here are going to be in that category, there's also something to say, which is, there are a lot of STDs that are actually easier to transmit from men to women than the other way around. So in some ways, you have this sort of little bit of a statistical advantage in that if you are carrying an STD, you are actually possibly lower risk than if that were the other way around. So I encourage you, if you're really, getting involved with someone and you want to be sexual in that way, that you guys actually go over this stuff together, that you get your head into the detail of it a little bit more, so you can make a good risk assessment for you about what kind of practices you may want to involve yourselves in or not. But if that conversation never feels available, and that's not just because of what's going on in you, it doesn't ever feel available with him, I think you also have your answer. So in some ways, in strange way, I'm almost saying that this STD sexual health conversation can actually be a filter on who you want to be in relationship with, and we all have things with our physical bodies, right? There's no one who's got 100% perfect physical body, whatever that would be, right? Everyone is going to have health challenges at some point. Everyone is going to have things that decline in their body or unexpected things. There's so much chronic systemic health issues that are going on at the moment. So it's like, this is just one of those things. You might say, well, yeah, it's different though, because this is kind of easier to transmit onto someone. Okay, but if anyone's going to be in relationship with you at a deep level, there's going to be all sorts of things that the relationship actually flushes up that show that you and I are wounded, difficult, frail, strange, quirky. There's all sorts of things that have come up. And this is just one thing. It's one thing to know about. So it's almost like I don't need you to over fixate on this, like, oh, I carry this around, like this is my badge of shame. No, this is part of life, right? Part of life is that we have health challenges. Part of life is that we have sexual health issues at times. And the more that you can just normalize that within your system, drop the story, drop the shame, be honest and upfront, and then notice what you get back from a guy. And if you get back from a guy something that doesn't feel like it's actually supportive and constructive, you probably have your answer. So I'd love to know what your experiences are. Questions and comments below this video. I hope this has been helpful to you. As always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit subscribe and then tap the bell notification so you're with us on this journey. All right, thanks so much.